This is Obsidian ASMR. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Hey, and welcome back to our regular scheduled programming on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays. My apologies for missing Sunday of this week. That was because I was at Comic-Con with a couple of my friends and I just ran out of road. Had a very, very, very busy weekend. So that's why you got the Dragon Ball GT unboxing video yesterday. Where we saw a production cell of Pan. But today we are back on schedule with the second part of our PC, or in this instance, World of Warcraft video game collection. And as you can probably tell, we're starting off with the somewhat divisive Cataclysm. And I remember this was one of the ones that really, really captured my interest at the time. Off the back of the Lich King, I was looking forward to seeing this, and one of the big things that this introduced was a remodeling of Azeroth and turning it into a flyable zone, whereas previously you could only fly in Outland and Northrend. This changed all of that and made some permanent changes to the look of Azeroth itself. Now I believe that Cataclysm is now going to be the next World of Warcraft classic expansion, which is now becoming more like Retail WoW Mark II 10 or 15 years later after the release. Probably more like 13. So, this was released originally in 2010, which feels like a lifetime ago now, and that's probably because it was. And as it says on the back, a new age has begun. You've toppled the undead armies of the Lich King and brought Arthas to his knees. Now the Breaker of Worlds, Deathwing, has burst forth from the heart of the Maelstrom and unleashed his rage upon the land and sea. Azeroth has been changed forever, and you must enter the elemental planes in an epic quest to stop the Destroyer from shattering the world itself. So, not only do you get the ability to fly in this one, and it's very dragon-centric, because Deathwing is the head of the Black Dragonflight. But you also get a level increase to 85, although they've since squished that. And, interestingly, this was one of the expansions where you got another couple of playable races in the form of goblins for the Horde to kind of mirror gnomes and the Worgen. So there's the Worgen. And there are the goblins that were heavy in the marketing. So yeah, there's a new playable area called Kezan and also Gilneas. So those are the two areas that the goblins and the Worgen start side by side, and then obviously you've got the Dragon Queen, Alexstrasza, who we'll come back to in a later edition of these parts, and Deathwing, whose real name, or non-Deathwing name, I believe is Neltharion. And that, if you hadn't noticed, is the Horde emblem. So, that is the basic version of the game, but as always, we also have the Collector's Edition, which I was really getting into the swing of looking at this stage. Although, I must say, these Cataclysm ones, you can still pick them up on eBay and they are not that expensive compared to some of the others. But here you go. So, Cataclysm. Now with this one, it's quite heavy. And it says the same thing that the normal expansion set says on here, but you also get Little Deathwing as a pet, as the in-game thing, and I think you get some avatar portraits from StarCraft 2. But we will go ahead and we will open this up, and we will have a look through what is in the box set or Collector's Edition. So as you remember last time, they give us these artwork boxes, which we will come back, or books, not boxes, which we will come back to later. We've got this pristine Cataclysm mouse mat that I didn't use very much at the time, because I thought the artwork was very cool on it. Got some more of these Hearthstone cards, which is interesting. We have got the soundtrack, and finally we've got the game and the behind the scenes DVD, which again gives you a look into the director's commentary, the designer interviews, artist interviews, and a retrospective on how far the Warcraft mythology has come from the original release of Warcraft Orcs and Humans in 1994. So, interesting. But I know why you're here. You're here for the art books. Or are you? Maybe you're here for the cards. If so, I apologise because I know absolutely nothing about them. So I'll put that back there like that quite nicely. And then we'll slide this over. Or in fact, I will open it like this. There he is. Neltharion with all of his armour. And you don't really see as much about the storyline, or the full picture of the storyline with this. Effectively, he's viewed as like the Mad Titan, or I don't think he's a Titan, but no, because the Mad Titan is Sargeras, not Deathwing. But Deathwing has been driven mad, and he's been mutated, and he should be a guardian for the Earth, but he isn't. And that is him in his non-dragon form, which again we can pick up later in a future edition of the series. But there's a lot of striking imagery with Deathwing. Yeah, and this was where you started to see a lot more of Twilight's Hammer, which is a faction using Old God magic, I believe, which is typically depicted as kind of like purple, or whereas the Burning Legion is green. The Old God magic is more kind of like purple. alias are quite interesting because they were humans and then there was some kind of like werewolf curse that brought them about. Not many people play as the Worgen. From my recollection anyway. You get quite a lot of these, old gods like Vashar or Vashir. And this is where they really started delving into the elements of the storyline that had been picked up in Ulduar, and establishing the kind of, not the immediate threat, but a threat nonetheless that was influencing events on Azeroth. Another thing to factor in at this point, I believe, you get a glimpse into the underworld of Queen Azshara, although you don't actually see her at this point. You just see some of her minions. They were again kind of like corrupted night elves that serve her. A lot of them in the maelstrom, etc. And there's quite a cephalopod vibe to the old gods in the artwork, which I think is quite interesting. Uldum is kind of like an Egyptian-themed zone within Azeroth, and you get quite a lot of those Arabic influences, like the jinn or genies. And this was in the south, I believe, of Kalimdor that they introduced this zone, I think, which was previously in Oasis. But the main portion, or the main zone that this all takes place in, is the Maelstrom, which is located between, that's it, located between Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms, under the water. So, it's quite an interesting place to get to in the game, but it's not I wouldn't say it's a place where I would want to go back to. You get quite a lot of stuff about earth elementals in this, and Ragnaros comes back from the original World of Warcraft game in this one, so that is what I remember about Cataclysm. I do think that the quality with Cataclysm did dip somewhat compared to Wrath of the Lich King, but it had a tough job kind of establishing new stories and taking the game in a new direction compared to previous installments. And in the long run, I think it has done well with that. There are some others that we'll get to that I don't think did a very good job of it. But this was the pinnacle of the subscriber count for the game when it was incredibly popular, and almost everybody was playing World of Warcraft, and it was a very big cultural phenomenon. At the end of Wrath of the Lich King and the beginning of this expansion, this was when World of Warcraft was really at the peak of its powers. But now, we move on to a more controversial installment into the Warcraft mythology. So, we then move to the infamous Mists of Pandaria. I won't lie, this really put me off playing World of Warcraft back in the day. And you got to view it, in my opinion, through the context and the prism that was their declining player base during Cataclysm. The only market that was increasing at the time, and they were getting more subscribers, was in the Chinese market. So, it it stands to reason that they decided to cater towards that market for the upcoming expansion. My problem wasn't that it was catering towards that market, but this whole concept, which, the landscapes were beautiful, and I thoroughly enjoyed, like, the sky serpents and all that kind of thing, and, the continent of Pandaria itself was very rich and, a beautiful homage to Chinese culture. I just didn't have any lore background to build this off of. It felt very ham-fisted with regard to the rest of the Warcraft mythology that had been, going on since the 1990s. There was no mention of the Pandaren, to my knowledge. There was definitely no mention of Pandaria as a continent. There was no storylines, no understanding of the Shah, or anything like that. So this was a completely new and completely organic, in a sense, or non-organic I should say, expansion. Was the content bad? No, I don't think the content was bad on the face of it. It just, when I get into something, I get into something because of the story. I get into it because of the continuity. I get into it because of the mythology. I tend to play a lot of single-player games, as you probably already guessed. So, I like MMORPGs, but they have to have a very strong and cohesive storyline for me. And this always stuck out like a sore thumb, because everything else that's gone on, or most of everything else that's gone on, you can make a case as to why that is in the mythology, but this was, to make a pun, pandering. They were pandering on the continent of Pandaria. That's quite funny. So, it says on the back, unlock the mysteries of Pandaria. You've ended Deathwing's destructive rampage and saved the dragonflights from extinction. Now you must unlock the mysteries of the lost continent and discover the dark secrets of Pandaria's past. Explore ancient kingdoms hidden since before the Sundering, plunder vast treasures from the depths of forgotten vaults, and rise to defend Pandaria from the shadow of a long-buried evil before it's too late. So yet again it raised the level cap to 90, although that has been squished since. It introduced the Pandaren as a playable race who could be both Alliance and Horde, so they were cross-factional. And also a new playable class, which was the Monk, who are primarily, they can be very good DPS, but they can also be incredibly good healers. So, it wasn't all bad. And as I say, what did grip me with this was the artwork. It was very, very good. As you can probably see, there's quite a lot of philosophy that was trying to, they were trying to lace through the entire expansion, but it was kind of more surface level philosophy, like a beginner's guide to Zen Buddhism and stuff like that. Maybe Zen Buddhism is the wrong expression, but ancient Chinese, Confucian philosophy, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, it says it all there. For 10,000 years, the ancient races of Pandaria have hidden in the mists. Will they now prove friends or foe? It's just like you definitely shoehorned this in. That's where, as I say, they did lose me a bit, and I think they lost quite a lot of players at this point. And you'll be like, oh, Obsidian, you've definitely not got the collector's edition, and you would be wrong. I am. For anything that I care deeply about, I am a supporter, and I am a collector. So, you guessed it. Here it is, the collection tome for Mists of Pandaria. Again, I've got to say the box looks very, very nice. And I love these little motifs. It doesn't have anything on the back, so... Let me open this up. And again, oh, this one's the first one to have a Blu-ray disc involved, which is interesting. But you got a Warcraft pet and mount with this one, with the Imperial Quelan mount, and Lucky the Quelan cub, as well as more StarCraft 2 portraits and a Diablo 3 banner as downloadable content that you can only redeem once in the game. You get this beautiful mouse mat along with it. As you would expect, you get the Art of Pandaria. A very lovely embossed book here. You get the soundtrack, which is still sealed. And they've got rid of the cards for this, and instead just have the game and the behind the scenes DVD/Blu-ray. Which I didn't realise that you get a Blu-ray with these now. That shows how much attention I paid. So again, this has the director's commentary, the developer's interviews, and some bonus features and soundscapes that come along with the game's release. I'm not going to spend too long looking through this because honestly I don't remember much about this other than Garrosh goes a bit crazy, and there's a lot of hijinks with brewers and monks and things like that. Again, it's very beautiful, the book. For over 10,000 years, an impenetrable mist shrouded the legendary realm of Pandaria. Without warning, the island's veil disappeared, revealing the enchanted land to the outside world. Teeming with exotic life, Pandaria's diverse landscapes range from lush emerald forests dotted with ancient ruins to towering snow-capped mountains. The isle's myriad cultures have customs and beliefs unlike anything the rest of the world has ever seen. And Pandaria's most prolific people, the noble Pandaran, oversee a peaceful empire of quaint farming villages and stunning majestic temples. Now that this island's long era of isolation is over, it is only a matter of time before the Pandaran and other indigenous races make contact with explorers from Azeroth's disparate kingdoms. I think in this one they updated a lot of the character models for the current races. I think. But you can see the Chinese influence. It's teeming with it, to use their expression. Brimming with Chinese influence. And as I say, I think it's one of the better looking expansions, and I did enjoy going around the Emerald Forest and other zones. The Jade Forest. But I didn't play this when it was current content, if I'm honest with you. I skipped this when it was current, and I came back to it later, during the next expansion, which we'll talk about in a minute. use as a aesthetic. So the Shahs in this were basically like old gods or possessed old gods. But they could be corrupting influences. So what happens with Garrosh is he gets too close to the Shah of Anger, and that fuel, I mean, again, that's beautiful, isn't it? That fuels his xenophobia and his warlust, etc., etc., which ultimately is his undoing, and he desecrates some of the ancient Pandaran monuments. The Hosen are kind of like monkeys, and the Jinyu are fish. Fun fact, Ginyu, as I've told you, is milk in Japanese, but this is more of a Chinese influence. Mantid, obviously very insect-like. And I forget what these are called. Are they the Mogu? That's it, the Mogu Empire. They reappear later on. And these are what the Shahs look like. Not those, but the... yeah. Anyway. So Garrosh basically commits war crimes during this. But the end raid for this was the Siege of Orgrimmar, which was quite an event, and is still, I think, one of the raids that a lot of people look back to with fondness, where effectively Garrosh and his new horde take on the combined efforts of the old horde and the alliance. I think at this point they're called the Iron Horde, Garrosh's version, but I'm not too sure because that does blend in with the next expansion. So what would I say about Miss Pandaria? I'd say that it's good. The content is incredibly easy now if you wanted to go back and play it, because I think it's about 10 years old, maybe 12. I think this came out in 2012 or 13, I think. I'm going to say 2012. And at that time I was just busy doing other things, and yeah, this didn't grip me like the other one, so I didn't really go back to it. But then we move on to the next expansion. So that leads us to the last part, or expansion, for this video. And the last of the original expansion sets that I picked up in store. I don't know whether they kept doing them. I think they definitely did Legion, but I'm not sure that they did any of the others after that. I could be wrong. But it is Warlords of Dror. Now, what is fascinating about this one is after Mists of Pandaria, the premise in the Siege of Orgrimmar was to punish Garrosh Hellscream. Well, Garrosh disappears. And in fact he goes back in time in a very mystical kind of event. I forget how he actually does it. But he breaks through time and travels back to the very famous instance where Gul'dan, the harbinger of the Burning Legion, the mastermind behind the Burning Legion's invasion of both Draenor and Azeroth, tempts the Orcish clans of Draenor to drink the blood of Manaroth. And this, on the cover, is Gromosh Hellscream, who is Garrosh's father. So, it's a kind of alternate reality, time travel farmers escaped through the dark portal, that's right, and forged the orc clans of old into a terrifying war machine known as the Iron Horde. Now you must mount a desperate charge into Draenor of the past and bring down the warlords of this savage land before all is lost beneath the relentless tides of iron. Which is the Iron Horde I was just talking about. So the level cap is level 90, but this is one of those where they did squish it again. And I was wrong. Mists of Pandaria didn't update the character models, it was this. And this one came out, I believe, in 2013, 2014. I think 2014. And I remember getting really, really interested in this one. Oh, no, sorry, the level cap is 100 as it says here, but you get a free boost to level 90. Another thing that you got in this expansion was a kind of like your own personal expanse, which was, or area, instance, I guess, called your garrison, which was like an outpost that you were the master of, and you would gain resources and send followers out on missions and all that good stuff. Unlock blacksmiths and unlock mounts and recipes and blueprints and things like that, along with your unlockable skills like fishing and cooking, etc., etc. And this is the Iron Horde that Garrosh started. So there is Gul'dan, who is actually part of the Iron Horde, or utilising the Iron Horde. But a lot of this is alongside Prophet Velen. And you do combat Ner'zhul in this, obviously, who I've said before becomes, or in the original timeline, is betrayed by Gul'dan, who was his apprentice, and his soul is transposed into the armour of the Lich King by Kil'jaeden the Deceiver. I really liked the motif of this one. I really liked the concept and the backstory. So, you can bet your bottom dollar, or pound, or rupee, or whatever, that I went and got the collector's edition. And here it is. What I will say is this was a bit of a World of Warcraft renaissance for me. And at the time I played a lot of Warlords of Dror. I have a friend who is very, very good at World of Warcraft, and he's consistently in the big guilds doing world first raids and mythics and all that kind of thing. I've never been that good, but I've never been close, really. I can do mythic raiding, but I am not. I don't keep up with everything. I really do find that I go away, I come back, I have like a fixation with it for a while, and then something else gets in the way, and then I come back to it again maybe a couple of months or a year later, where I've got to grind everything back to where it was, etc., so that I can do the current content, but also go back and do some of the content that I didn't quite get to last time. But with Warlords of Dror, I really did try to do all the content, and I did most of the dungeons. I did them all on normal difficulty. I did all of them, or most of them, on heroic. And then, yeah, I did start doing the raids as well. I've never really been part of a guild. So, again, because of the commitment issue, I would join them. And then I'd go away, and then they wouldn't be there when I got back. Or I'd be kicked out of them. One of the two. boots and Diablo 3 Warsong Pennant. And you do get some Hearthstone stuff as well, which was a new game at the time. But you also get this mouse mat, which was the mouse mat I used for a very, very long time. Again, just really liked the decor of it, and the design. Then on top of that, you get the art book, as you would expect. And they upped the quality of these again. It's very embossed. So you've got Gul'dan, Ner'zhul, Blade Fist, I think, and then this is, I think that is supposed to be Duratan, I think. You've got the soundtrack there in a very nice premium CD casing, cardboard casing, which is a very big upgrade from the previous one. You got the behind the scenes Blu-ray and DVD, although it doesn't tell you as much with that one, and then a copy of the game itself. So again, let us show you a little bit of the artwork of this Iron Horde. What I loved about this is actually, for those eagle-eyed version viewers of you out there, you'll see that this is, quite frankly, it's a reimagining of Outland before all of the fell magic had ravaged it. So by going back in time, we get to see what it was like before the Burning Legion came and destroyed it, with Gul'dan and the fell magic, which is fantastic. Although there are elements of it that are scarred because of the Iron Horde, and this alternate timeline, which I didn't realise still exists to this day. So Gorgrund is one of the areas which I think became the Thousand Needles. I think it might have become the Netherstorm. No, Frostfire Ridge was the... I'm pretty sure that was the Thousand Needles, and then... Oh, was it? I can't quite remember. Nagrand was always Nagrand, that just stayed there. And then this is kind of like what would be, or elements of that would become the Zangarmarsh. Shadowmoon Valley is just Shadowmoon Valley, that stayed the same as well. The Spires of Arak. That might be it. That might be the Thousand Needles area. One of those would become Hellfire Peninsula, which, again, I'm not really sure. It's been quite some time. I can picture the map in my head. Talador, or Alkandun, in all its glory, was fantastic, but the story of Alkandun is quite tragic. It effectively becomes like a sacrificial area where a massacre of the Draenei happens. Danan jungle, yeah, that's still the same. I'm pretty sure there's a map in this. revisiting all these areas, and it really gave me a sense of weird purpose. Seeing that the orcs, who were originally orange or brown skinned rather than green skinned, they became green skinned through the consumption of the Fel magic, which is forced on them or they're tricked into by Gul'dan. And obviously it's initially drank, as I said earlier, with the blood of Manaroth. I still go back and play elements of the Warlords of Dror. There's Manaroth. Big bad Manaroth. I still go and play bits of Draenor and Warlords of Dror content myself. I have a very, very soft spot for this version of the, or this expansion pack for the game. I also liked the next one, but we'll talk about that one in the next episode, or part of the series. Vividly remember this coming out. Vividly remember playing it. This was probably the second most, in terms of hours played during a period of World of Warcraft that I've ever done. Because this stretched between Warlords of Dror and then the following expansion, which I pretty much played for like 2 or 3 years consistently, or pretty much consistently, and then that kind of burnt me out, but we'll get onto that in the next episode. So that brings us to the end of this part 2. And I reckon we've got probably 2 more parts to this series before I bring it to a close. I don't know whether I'll be able to describe the remaining expansion packs in as much detail. I'm pretty confident about the next 2 and the last one, but not. There's one that I just did not go to, and the reviews of it are pretty dire. And if you know, you know. But thank you for spending your time in the World of Warcraft with me. There's 811 of you at the time of recording, which is, again, incredible. I can't believe how much this channel has grown this year. I keep saying it, I keep meaning it. I am blessed, and it is an absolute privilege to make these videos for you. So I hope you enjoy them. I look forward to seeing you all again on Thursday with our scheduled content for the next installment of Dragon Ball Super. And I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all getting into the festive spirit if you celebrate the holidays and Christmas. I certainly am. I hope that you get everything that you want from your loved ones, whether that's time or great food or lovely memories or presents or what have you. It's a very special time of year, especially for me and my family, and we're gearing up and getting ready. So, yeah. With that, the only thing left to say is, as always, take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye for now, everyone.